And innovation can be organic, it can be inorganic. Obviously, we just brought Poppi onto the family. And I think what makes it special is that the duality of, how do you continue to drive your core while add more? And that this kind of mindset, you have to kind of see every challenge as an opportunity and every opportunity as a challenge.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Marketing Vanguard podcast. I'm Jenny Rooney with Adweek, coming to you live from Cannes. We're sitting out here in the heat alongside the Croisette. We're coming down to the end of a very, very busy week for so many people here in the industry, but I'm thrilled to be joined by Mark Kirkham. He is the CMO of Pepsi Beverages North America. Mark, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. And it's hot, but it's special too.
People need Pepsi.
We do. Actually, it's great weather for Pepsi.
Right? And I should add, you're a founding member of Marketing Vanguard. So
yes, I am very proud and happy to be a part of it.
Excellent. Well, we're thrilled to have you. So I'm going to just start, Mark. You've had a lot of change in your career path recently. You were recently named to your role as CMO, PepsiCo Beverages North America. But you have a long history with Pepsi.
Yeah.
And Pepsi is one of those companies, it's one of those foundational companies. I would argue it's a marketing vanguard company in the industry that has long had a reputation for developing, cultivating just extraordinary marketing talent, not unlike a P&G or perhaps a Mondelez. There have been others in the industry. What brought you to Pepsi in the first place? And what have you done over the last, 16 years? Is that correct?
15 years. Yeah. No, I mean, well, first off, I came to Pepsi from P&G. And I came out of the Gillette side. So I've been so blessed over the last 20 years to be working across massive marketing companies, consumer-centric companies, amazing brands. But what brought me to Pepsi and what frankly keeps me at Pepsi is the people, the culture, the brands, and I think also our approach. I think the one thing about in a world of beverages, you always are on the go. You're always moving. There's a new challenge, there's a new opportunity. The category evolves constantly, so many new entrants. And yet you sit there and have these amazing, cherished brands that you get the chance to work with, to nourish, to steward. And that opportunity and responsibility is just something that kind of has always kept me there. Additionally, in the past, 8, 9 years, I've lived in the UK, I've lived in Ireland, I was a CMO for international beforehand. And I've learned so much about culture, about people, about business dynamics. And that kind of constant learning, that constant curiosity, that constant challenge has made the Pepsi experience what it is. We're a challenger brand in many of our categories. And I love that. I kind of feed off that. But at the same time, we also have brands like Gatorade and we have our Starbucks partnership. And so you have you have a responsibility to nurture, build, but also a challenge to actually disrupt and evolve. And I think that's what's kept me there.
I love that. You referenced the duality and the responsibility.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like we're here at Adweek House here in Cannes, and at a really high level, our overarching theme for this week is the duality of marketing. Because if you think about it, there's two sides to everything. Obviously, art and science has long been something that people have talked about. But to your point, there is that double responsibility of making sure you're maintaining the integrity, the credibility, the equity of those longstanding brands, even as you are seen and continue to make changes and decisions that position you as an innovator.
Absolutely.
Because that is what your business is built on.
I mean, in the beverage category, if you're not innovating, you die. It is one of those ideas where an innovation can be organic, it can be inorganic. Obviously, we just brought Poppi onto the family. And I think what makes it special is that the duality of, how do you continue to drive your core while add more? And that this kind of mindset, you have to kind of see every challenge as an opportunity and every opportunity as a challenge. That ability to think about, well, what is the role of this innovation? How am I going to address a new cohort? How am I going to actually enter a new category? But also, how am I going to continue to build the base? Because I think the larger the company, the larger the brands, your core is so important. And continuing to innovate on the core, it's actually hard. And to be able to do that and to be at a company that has a culture of innovation and a culture of change and a culture of, throughout our history of being a company that's, up for doing things differently and challenging convention, I think that's the kind of duality which makes marketing fun and exciting and challenging at the same time.
there's so many places I want to go with this, but we don't have that much time. But I referenced the fact that PepsiCo has long been, a cultivator of great talent,
Yeah.
and that is unique in the industry. I remember uh, almost 2 decades ago when I was at a competitor magazine, if you will, we had C. Nicholson on the cover, and at the time she went on, I think, to Yahoo and places perhaps. At the time, she was the CMO, and we had her on the cover, and she was holding a potted plant, and it was a metaphor for the talent cultivation. Why do you think Pepsi, what is it about Pepsi's history that has positioned it as such a talent cultivator in the marketing industry? And what are you doing today in your role to make sure you push that legacy forward?
Well, first off, legacy is probably the most important word in kind of thinking about what do you leave behind? What did I do as a marketer? And your legacy is what defines you. And if you look at all the amazing talent, I mean, I'm here this week. The number of CMOs of companies all around the world and definitely in our industry that came from PepsiCo is astonishing. But I think what it is that we do challenge our talent to push the envelope, to kind of try new things, the dynamics of the business, the category, how we recruit our talent. The fact that we're not a big training organization like a lot. We do have plenty of training, but we learn by doing. And I think the legacy, you should always be, I believe in the concept of leave the shirt in a better place than when you found it. It's a sport analogy. But I think every one of us had that. And the people who have gone on to other companies and other roles, they've never lost what it was that made it special. I was just sitting with the CMO of McDonald's, and Morgan's an old friend, and she talked about coming up as an intern and her experiences first on Beverages and then running Gatorade, and how that helped define her. And so I think what's amazing is you've got to challenge your teams to really to grow, and you've got to challenge your teams to try new things. I'm a pragmatic optimist. That's how I like to define myself. And the pragmatic thing is you got to understand where you are. The optimist is there's always something new. There's always to be curious. Go out there and try new things. And I think that culture kind of carries people on. And sometimes they end up leaving the company. But the reality is they've built something so special and they've left their legacy. And I've been lucky to kind of continue to grow and stay with the company and build teams that I'm super proud of. I opened an office in Ireland, built a 100-person team out of nothing, and now I have this amazing team in North America. It's super diverse. It's super entrepreneurial, even though we're a 90 some odd billion-dollar company. But it's that culture that makes it special, and I think that's how we've been able to create such great talent, both within and those who have gone on to do great things.
You can't talk about talent, though, without thinking about skills and what's necessary now to succeed. And obviously, here in Cannes, conversation inevitably goes around to AI and the new technologies that are powering and changing and shifting creativity and innovation. How are you thinking about the need for new skill sets? At a really high level, when you think about sort of the buckets of, I'm going to say expertise that you want your team and teams to have, where does your mind increasingly go?
I mean, it's as much about the tools as it is the capabilities to use them. And I think we overlook sometimes the foundational capabilities that we need as marketers to be able to adapt tools like AI, the move to mobile and digital 10, 15 years ago, people needed the capabilities of thinking different on storytelling. People had to think differently about how they're going to end all deliver their message in a new format, in a new model. And so I think you have to start with capabilities. And capabilities is not just about training for the sake of training. It's training with a very clear goal in mind. And it's to build the individual, it's to build, most importantly, the business, but also it's actually to build something differentiated for that individual or for you and your brand. So if I think of AI, I mean, every company's been using AI for years, mostly in the back of the house. And now that you come to the front of house, it's how has it become a tool? A tool that is actually building a capability versus being outsourced. I think too many companies outsource capabilities, and what you need to do is insource capabilities and then use the tools that allow you to do new and different things. And look, AI is just one of the many tools. Someone was talking the other day about just use it as a sounding board, as a way to kind of, if you were co-creating with a friend, it's just another friend. They just happen to be on an algorithm. And so using it as these tools, but you need the capability to understand how to use it and also how not to use it.
Yeah. I gotta give a shout out to my husband. I'm gonna make him listen to this episode because I will credit him. He has been a early adopter of AI in our household, and he really, frankly, he works for an agency, and he has been like the way he uses it in his day to day, and it's a test and learn like every minute of every day in terms of how he can use it, where he can use it in the car. When we went to Hawaii, thinking about how do we create an itinerary and map things out. Like you're only as limited as what you as a human being can think about in terms of how to use it. So, anyway, he's inspired me. So he's gonna love that
But I think what I love what you said is as a human being. And I think one of the things that I worry about and that people talk about here in Canada is like, is it going to replace creativity? Is it going to replace the advertising? Is it going to replace marketing? No, none of the other technologies that did before. It actually can make us better, but we need to build those capabilities to use it, use it in a way that's going to make it powerful.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, you're in a category that you said it's defined by innovation. If you're not innovating, you're out of the game. I mean, it's one of the most hyper competitive categories out there, and we've obviously seen so many forces at play that
Mhm.
have caused you to have to figure out how to adapt. Obviously, better for you foods. Thinking about that piece, thinking about the sustainability piece, thinking about the younger generations and how they're sort of gravitating to brands, and a lot of the founder-led brands that I
Yeah.
think hold a lot of sway, especially with people who love, origin stories and that sort of thing. Again, it's not an easy place to be. In many respects, it is because you're just one of the most globally dominant brands, and yet at the same time, you're having to look at all the forces at play, that could potentially create challenge.
Mhm.
Again, as CMO, how are you sort of thinking about those again, the duality of that?
Well, I think, look, and I go back to this: every challenge is an opportunity. Every opportunity is a challenge. What the challenges that exist in the marketplace or the consumer, they actually do create opportunities for our current brands and any new innovation. Use Gatorade as an example, right?
Yeah.
Gatorade, I think one of the challenges that we have right now is not everyone knows the origin story. And
True.
if you look at our creative today, and shout out to Anuj and the team, amazing work they've done. They've gone back
Yeah,
to tell the story of
I
the
love
1965 Gators, and we talk about the science, and we talk about how it actually gave them an edge and a performance. And to many, especially young consumers, they don't know that story. They weren't around then, and more importantly, they don't know why. That's why it's so different. That's why it created the category. Then you talk about sustainability, our enhancers, our powders, our equipment business, the amazing squeezers and all the other equipment we have. That's another way to build a brand that can address some of the headwinds or the challenges in the category. And it also addresses some of the challenges from a sustainability standpoint. And then other brands like Pepsi, our zero sugar business, particularly Pepsi Zero, it's been a small part of our business for many years,
yeah.
while our competitor has grown theirs, swiftly. And the reality is, we need to go out there and make a stand, be disruptive. So we brought back the Pepsi Taste Challenge with our zero sugar product, and we've gone to 25 cities. We have won in every single one of them. I'm not going to mention competitors, but what we've done is really simple. We got people to try.
Yeah.
We got people to taste and actually convince themselves, wow, this is amazing. And it tastes better than the other one. And what I love about that is the simplicity. We have a responsibility, what I say is to make simple special. I think we sometimes get too complicated too fast, and we make our jobs a lot harder than they should be. Focus on consumer need, focus on where your brands can be relevant, focus on the challenges and opportunities, and make it special. If we can do that, we'll all be successful.
The acquisition of Poppi, what is that representative of, and do you expect us to see more of those kinds?
Well, I think the important thing about Poppi is, first off, it's an amazing brand. What that team has done and what Alice and her husband have built is something really special that had a really good origin story and created and brought people back into the sparkling category. In a way that, there have been apple cider vinegar products, there have been kombuchas, but it's the branding, it's the work that they did and their backstory, all the way from Mother, all the way through Shark Tank. And what they also did was were really smart in their marketing model. Some of us, as the bigger the brands, the bigger the companies, the harder it is to kind of stretch. And they've done it so organically. And they've built something that obviously made it so interesting for us to actually bring them into our family. The most important thing is, how do you continue to maintain that while you also build your portfolio out? And it's going to allow us to bring new consumers in. We're also going to bring them into new channels. All these opportunities are actually why, when we look at the landscape and why larger companies go out and look for who their next partner is going to be, you have to look at where's there an opportunity, where there might be a gap, whether it's consumer or category, and what is the benefit you both give each other. And I think that's where Poppy's going to go. Distribution, channel, all these different things. But then what can I learn from them? It's so amazing when you talk to their team. You're like, wow, you think a little bit different. And there's so many things that we can learn and they can learn from us. So it's an exciting opportunity, but the most important thing is you gotta let them continue to be what they are and make sure that you kind of nurture that as they come into the family. Not right now, I don't think so. I mean, there's always something going on in the company, but I think right now, I think it's important that we also look at the core. You know, I like to think about the concept of core and more. You always have to think about how do you continue to build. I mean, our categories are still growing. Our brands are still incredibly powerful and loved, and we can do so much more with the core. And so I would expect that we continue to do that. We'll always look for opportunities, but look for opportunities for so many consumers. Like, the penetration rate is still there. You've got the opportunity. Our so we Mountain Dew Baja Blast as an example, right? Amazing brand.
My daughter loves it.
We
Greatest
the
thing.
amazing brand, it was essentially grown in Taco Bell for 20 years. We bring it to retail. We've grown 4 points of penetration this year. Like, you just do the math for the number of households. But again, there's so much more runway. There's so much more runway in our core. We got brands like Mug Root Beer. Like, root beer is really cool again, and we've done some amazing work with our friends at
People got,
Vanguard,
we
like.
got very thoughtful and opinionated over Poppy's root beer
Oh, yeah, yeah, there's, people have opinions out there.
reformulation happening. I
You know,
understand.
all I can tell you is that you gotta listen to the consumer.
There you go.
You gotta listen to the consumer, but, on the root beer side, there's something going on. We literally got consumers to essentially buy Mug Root Beer, send a selfie so they could get a stick, so they could fetch a stick. Like, there's something there in these nostalgic and creative and special spaces like root beer that we all grew up with.
People are passionate.
And it's funny when you
Yeah.
come out in places like Cannes, like, root beer is foreign.
Yeah, totally.
Fruit punch, root beer. So how do you continue to nurture these brands we've had for many years? I think that's gonna be my main focus in the short term.
Super fun. Last few quick questions. We're back in Cannes. This is like home turf for you in many respects, having been led international, as you mentioned earlier. What did you take from that experience? How many years were you in?
I spent almost 9 years overseas, starting in the UK and Western Europe, and then spending time in Ireland where I ran international as well as our juice and our energy and our Gatorade business. So, look, I think the most amazing thing about living abroad is learning new businesses, learning new cultures. You in many cons, because markets are smaller, budgets are smaller, you have to do more with less, which actually makes you more nimble, makes you more creative. We have a scrappier, we have a very diverse business model with a lot of franchise bottlers throughout the international business. So you just learn different collaboration skills. You might learn a few words and a few languages here and there. And I think you also learn about the category in a different way,
Yeah.
both the retail side and the competitive side. And it just challenges you every day. And I think that's what keeps me just engaged and excited. And then you take that mindset back to the US when I moved back about 9 months ago. I look at the US so differently now, and I see the US as many different states and countries within a country. And if you think about that, you start thinking different about Hispanics. You start thinking about different about multicultural. You start thinking about different about the regions, the different cohorts. That allows you to really decompose what too many people think is, oh, it's just one big market.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what the kind of experience I took from there, and that I'm bringing to my new role.
It's very cool. What do you think the headline from Cannes 2025 is going to be?
It was really hot. I think that will be
That's true.
headline one. Headline two, right, wrong, or different, is going to be something with the word AI in it. I think you could just say AI stands for advertising industry. But I do think, that will be out there. Um, I think fun, and I don't mean fun like being in Cannes fun, but like fun in communication, bringing humor back. A lot of conversation, like, it's so nice to just have fun and talk about advertising. I spent a day on the Quasette hanging out with Seal, talking about making Seal a seal for Mountain Dew. Like, that was fun. Like, let's make sure, do all the good, amazing, powerful, emotive work, but have a ton of fun.
That was one of the most successful in the Super Bowl.
Yes, it was, and it was the number one searched ad on YouTube, and helped drive our business, help reframe the brand, help educate people that it was actually a tropical lime flavor because it's kissed front by a lime, and I think that's fun. Yeah, so
What do CMOs need now?
I think curiosity. It can. I mean, it's a little bit, cliche to say.
From others.
No, a need from others.
Support that you think that they need right now to
I
do
think we
their
need to
jobs
be
better.
super open to sharing ideas more often, earlier in the process. I mean, like, we are all a network of people who have worked together for many years. Best practice share. We don't do that enough. We wait once a year to see an output that's been shared to the world. Why don't we share stuff earlier? I've been talking to partners and potential partners here, like, hey, let's do this earlier. Let's share data. I think we would always, keep things close to the chest for a very long time. And there is a purpose for that in many ways. But in the world of creativity, in the fast moving world of technology, and especially the role of data to inform the work we do, we need to be more open to sharing and learning. And I think that we can actually learn, for example, from the tech industry, and the tech industry marketers, they're learning every day because they have the data. They're seeing things change on it. But for us CPG types, I think the more we can share from our customers, from our retailers, we have all of our away from home and food service customers. I think there's a huge opportunity there. And that's what I think we need to do is share more, embrace this opportunity, be curious about what other people are doing,
Yeah.
and have some fun along the way.
I love that. Okay, last quick question. I ask this in every Marketing Vanguard interview, but who's next? Is in our spirit of paying it forward, who's one person you recommend we invite onto the podcast and interview? It can be somebody you know really, really well who's doing extraordinary things, or somebody you admire from afar. You just think they're doing really great work.
Oh, that is always good. Sophia, my dear friend Sophia, at Miller Coors. And I know that she's been here before.
Colucci, yeah.
Yes.
I don't I actually.
I think you have to. Why? And here's a plug. She's ex PepsiCo. She's an amazing human being. They're doing great work. They're having fun, a lot of fun. They have that kind of challenger mindset, and they have a huge portfolio of brands. So, yeah, I think I'll pay it forward to Sophia.
If you're listening, I'm calling you next week. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mark, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a pleasure, and enjoy the rest of your can. And I hope to talk to you very soon. I'm sure we will be together soon. So
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Marketing Vanguard, part of the Adweek Podcast Network and Acast Creator Network. You can listen and subscribe to all of Adweek's podcasts by visiting adweek.com/podcasts. Stay updated on all things Adweek Podcast Network by following us on Twitter at Adweek Podcasts. And if you have a question or suggestion for the show, send us an email at podcast@adweek.com. Thanks for listening.